Good morning, Samy Abdunnur again. Hope you're all fine. Everyone's busy with the corona epidemic, pandemic, whatever you call it. Whether you believe there's a trade war behind it between the United States and China or not, I want to discuss language, Arabic particularly, and its relationship to trade, because world trade is affected by language more than most people would know, would imagine. Now, Arabic is a language that has been vehemently fought, battled for centuries, more or even millennia. Again, for those of you who don't know, the main attackers of Arabic are Muslims who are not Arab ethnically, mainly Iranians, Persians, and Turks, and Kurds, and Berbers, and the like, non-Arab Muslims. The West at some point latched onto that, because Arabic used to be the language of science in the Western world at some point, and later on the West latched onto the fight against Arabic, latched onto the Muslim fight against Arabic. It has a long history, which we're not going to deal with, over 1,000 years, this attack on Arabic, and it has failed thus far. Why is that, you would think, and why did the West latch onto it, since Arabic was a Western language of science and of world trade and communication, international communication? Why would the West latch onto the fight against classical Arabic? There are three reasons, main reasons. First of all, Arabic is a very, very powerful language. Wherever it's spread, in Asia, Africa, and Europe, all the languages it mixed with, and there are many, were all annihilated, ended, and Arabic remains the same, unchanged for thousands of years. Arabic is the only language you can read more than 1,000 years back. Why is that? Why would Persian, Turkish, a bunch of Asian and African and even Romance languages of Europe be affected so much by Arabic, whereby Arabic isn't affected at all? Well, that's because of the unique structure of Arabic. So Arabic prevails over, has throughout history prevailed over all languages it has come into contact with, which includes the Romance languages in Europe and the Turkic languages in Asia, not limited to what we call Turkish, all the Turkic languages, and Persian, and all the languages of India, and a bit of China, and all the languages of Africa. Why is that? The structure of Arabic is what Western linguists call a standardized language, meaning there's a standard form of language which we call classical Arabic, that you have to measure your utterances against. What you speak derives from it, and it's the only language for reading and writing, which is classical. So what you say is not necessarily exactly what you are going to write or read, like it is in English or other such languages that are not standardized in that way. But actually, standardized doesn't capture the power of it. It's standardized and normalized. Arabic has its own logic and its own set of norms embedded within the language, that again I'm not going to discuss now how that functions, so as not to to bore you, but it needs its own discussion. Nevertheless, what we're concerned with here is why Arabic prevailed and will prevail when it gets in touch with any other language with no effort. It's not like this, it has to be enforced. It just remains and the other languages die away. And even when they're reborn, like what happened to Persian and Turkish and all the Latin, all the Romance languages, they're different. You can't, a big bulk, if not most of the language is Arabic, like the case for Persian and Turkish and Spanish, and a huge bulk of the language is Arabic. So it's not the language that predated its intermixing with Arabic, and Arabic remains unscathed. The reason for that is when you have a standardized and a normalized language like Arabic is, it does not submit to what the West later on in economics calls the dollar vote, to what people like or dislike, what people find easy or difficult. It doesn't change. This is the way it has to be, because there's a standard for it that is immutable, and whether you like it or not, you can't change it. So it has to say, you have to speak today like you used to speak 2,000 years ago. And that only applies to Arabic, to no other language in the world. Some people start singing the praises of Hebrew. Hebrew is even older. No, that's not true. The standard for Hebrew is Arabic. It's Arabic lexicon and grammatical structure. The only language is Arabic that is completely standardized and still alive and normalized. So what does that have to do with world trade? Money. It has everything to do with the dollar vote. When commodities are bought and sold, and this is very easy to see in commodities of a cultural nature, like movies and media generally, music, books, but it applies throughout the scale and the scope of economy. When commodities are the way what is called the free world operates is the dollar vote. Whatever people like, whatever people want, whatever people find beneficial or just have the whim to buy, they buy, and the sellers can sell as much as people want to buy. Now you have to ask yourself, if this is the case and people have standards and norms within their language, does that affect what they buy, their taste, what they want to buy and sell, and what they want to buy and then they even sell too? It does. And the important point to note here is that language is not simply a means of communication. Language is also a tool of thought, meaning that you cannot conceive of concepts without language. It's like a computer program that produces conceptual thoughts, ideas. You can't think without that tool, which is a language. Now there's a big difference if the tool is standardized and normalized, therefore logical, or if it's just simply whatever you have the whim for, whatever you feel like. Now, Western culture has operated throughout its ascent through a system called cognitive conceptual redefinition. It means that people change their ideas, their concepts, and even if the word changes or not, it doesn't matter. That the cognition of this concept changes throughout the ages. So words just become a means of communicating different ideas, even if it's the same word that used to mean something and now it means something else. So it has the concept has been redefined. Now if your language is normalized and standardized, cognitive conceptual redefinition, by which the entire Western culture has progressed throughout the centuries, ceases to operate. It stops. Why? Because you can't change the meaning of any word. It doesn't matter, again, what you like or don't like. Nothing changes. Now, how does that prohibit buying and selling? Of course it does, because you can't. You have a set of standardized concepts and norms in your head, derivative of your tool of thought, which is your language, that makes you accept things and not accept others, want things and not want others, which limits the selling of crap all around the world. And it's easy to see if you look at cultural crap that the West sells. Now the West tried to embattle that, the descent of Western culture into crap, garbage, by creating institutions for that. Among them is the BBC, British Broadcasting Company, and it didn't work. They tried to limit the descent of Western culture into crap by maintaining social strata, nobility, and like England does again, and the different levels of society to maintain high culture. Didn't work, because you need these norms. If you want it to work, you need these norms and standards embedded in everyone's minds, and they must be the tool of thought, not only for a limited class of people, for everyone. And they have to be embedded in their minds. It can't be enforced throughout the centuries by institutions. And thus, if classical Arabic remains alive, world trade, the way it is, at least the entirety of Western sort of free economy, which is an economy that simply sells crap to the world, sells whatever makes a profit, which is the less it is cultured, the less it is of high culture, it sells more. For any commodity, you have standards. If you don't have standards, you can sell anything. If that becomes engendered in everyone's minds, because that's the way their language is structured, then the whole Western economy, the way it's been going, destroying everything in its path, will cease. So the West found it very useful to end classical Arabic, and it is putting great efforts to that end via, as I said, Muslims who are not Arabs, Kurds, Berbers, Persians, Turks. It has a long history and still ongoing. So that's the second. We covered two important unique aspects of Arabic, which is power vis-a-vis other languages, and which is the other one is it's how it limits a dollar vote and it ends cognitive conceptual redefinition. The last point of power that Arabic possesses is its cultural and religious dimension, normative dimension. Religion before the Arabs was dominated by a clergy in different forms. The Abrahamic tradition, which began in Palestine, is an Arabic tradition, and what it does is it eliminates the clergy. So religion becomes, if you eliminate the clergy, it just becomes part of your culture, ideas. It has nothing to do, norms and standards within your culture. That's what's left of religion. If you eliminate the clergy. Now, what does the clergy do? The clergy decides what these norms and standards are, which is again a class of people. So the only way to eliminate these people who control thought, control what's right and wrong, what's pretty and ugly, norms of society and religion of your entire culture, is to have the language itself do that. If the language is standardized and normalized, then you don't need a clergy, which is why the Quran is in Arabic and it can't be in any other language. So this is just a brief idea of why Arabic is so vehemently fought. And to know more, you have to know Arabic. I will explain later on how the intricacies of the structure of such a language is, for those who are interested. Salam.